Okay, so let's review again from we're in Berachos, Perek Beis, Mishna Daled, and Hey we did yesterday. Let's just review those again today. Mishna said in Mishna Hey, Ha'umnin Kairin B'Roisha Elon, someone who's working can read the Krias Shema on top of a tree, or B'Roisha Nidbach, or on top of a wall. Mashein Rishayim Lasses came B'Tfilah, which is something they're not allowed to do for davening. We explained yesterday Friday, that Krias Shema, it's only the first bracha, the first pasuk, or maybe the first two pasukim that require concentration. So that short amount of time, even a person in a somewhat precarious situation can have concentration. But davening Shema Esrei, you have to concentrate the whole time. That's harder, so we make you go down, even though it'll interrupt your work. Mishna Hey, Chasen Pater mi Krias Shema b'layla harishain. A chasana, a new groom, is pater from Krias Shema on his wedding night. Ad Motzei Shabbos, which in the Gemara's time would be before nights, in Le'asa Maisa, if he hasn't yet consummated his marriage. Maseches Rabban Gamliel. However, there was a story with Rabban Gamliel, Shekara b'layla harishain, who did read Krias Shema the first night Shinasa after he got married. Amar Talmidim, and his Talmidim said to him, Leilam Teinu Rabbeinu, didn't our Rebbe teach us Shechasen pater mi Krias Shema, that a chasen's pater from Krias Shema b'layla harishain on the first night? Amar lahem, he said to them, Eini shomei lachem levatul mimeni malchus shemaim afilu she'achas. I'm not going to listen to not be makabel malchus shemaim on myself even for one moment. So he's acknowledging that really that is the din, but he's saying personally I'd like to be stringent. I'd like to say Krias Shema even though I might not be obligated. And then we have a new Mishnah Vav, which is somewhat in the other direction. Another story with Rabban Gamliel. Rachatz, he bathed Laila Harishan Shemesa Ishto, the night after his wife died, when he was an Avel, and normally we know that an Avel is not allowed to wash. Amrulu Talmidim, so again his Talmidim asked him, Leilam Deinu Rabbeinu, didn't our master teach us She'avel Aser L'Recite, that a mourner is not allowed to bathe, so what are you doing bathing? Amr Lahem, so he said to them, Eini Kashar Kol Adam, it's true, but I'm not like other people. Istinus ani. I'm a particularly sensitive person, and if I don't wash, it's gonna damage me. So therefore, again, so he's in the previous Mishnah he was being more strict than the average individual because he was Yarei Shamayim. He didn't want to not do the mitzvah. Over here, he's acknowledging that he has physical limitations and therefore he needs to bathe, otherwise it wouldn't be well for him. And then Mishnah Zayin, Kishemeis Tevi Avdu, another story with Rabban Gamliel, when Tevi, Rabban Gamliel's famous servant, died, Kibul of Tanchumin, he accepted regular people to come and comfort him over the loss of his slave. Amrulu Talmidim, as Talmidim said to him, Leilam Deinu Rabbeinu, didn't our master teach us She'ein mekabel tanchumin al avodim, that if a slave dies, you don't come comfort the mourners. And they explain the reason is because we want to make clear distinctions in classes, and since an Eved is not allowed to marry a regular Yisrael, so they want to make it clear that they're not full-fledged members of the congregation. So they have this limitation that when they die, we don't do the same procedure we would for somebody else. So Amalemi said, yeah, it's true. But again, a different reason. Ein Tevi avdi kashar kol havadim. Tevi, my servant, he's not like a regular Eved. Kasher haya, they say, which they see means he was a Talmud Chacham, so he's deserving of honor, even though he doesn't have yichus, even though he is only a slave, but he learned, and that makes him worthy of this honor. And finally, the last Mishnah in Perek Beis, Mishnah Ches, really going back to Mishnah Hey, which we saw before, where Gamliel was machmer. So the Mishnah says, Chotson, a chasen, imroitz likris Krias Shema, if even though the letter of the law is that he is exempt from Krias Shema, if he wants to read it anyway, Laila Rishon on the first night, Kaira. So if anyone wants, the first time of the Mishnah says, they could go beyond the letter and they could read the Krias Shema that first night. Rabbi Gamliel says, no, not everyone who wants to say that I'm such a devout person that I don't want to not read Krias Shema like Rabbi Gamliel can. If they say it's haughty for anyone to say that in such a situation I'm going to have concentration and I'm going to read it anyway. Although all the commentaries point out that things have flipped a little bit nowadays. That nowadays, not reading Krias Shema when one's distracted implies that one in general does have proper concentration when they're reading Krias Shema. So to not read when on one's wedding night would imply that usually I'm able to have full concentration, but tonight I'm a bit distracted, so I can. So they say really nowadays there'd be no problem with anyone saying reading Krias Shema even in a situation where they're exempt, because it doesn't look like I'm saying that I can have concentration now, even though normal people can. I'm just saying I never really have concentration anyway, so I may as well say Krias Shema tonight. Okay.